How about a hand for Mr. Sullivan harmonicas? That was great. That was great. Well, our next speaker, well, you know, we should do a little cheer, shouldn't we? What was that? How about, what's that one? Hey, hey. You gotta repeat that. Hey, hey. Hey, ho. Noosa must go. How about that one? You ready? Hey, hey. Hey, ho. Noosa must go. All right, I like that one. And Noosa must go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. And Noosa must go. How about this one? Open them up. Slow. Open them up slow. Open them up slow. Open them up slow. Open them up slow. Well, that feels good. That feels good. Okay, so we have a tight schedule here. I need to bring up our next speaker, Dr. Frankel. He's a medical doctor of family medicine. He's a medical specialist in Templeton, California. He's been practicing for 50 years, ladies and gentlemen. This is a professional. He graduated from Albert Einstein College. Must be very smart then. He's supposed to be genius, right? Albert Einstein College of Medicine of Yeshiva University in 1970 and specializes in family medicine. I heard him on Dave Congleton, and he is absolutely fantastic. I also had the pleasure to see him up in Paso Robles. Who else saw him up there? Well, we know we're in for a treat. Dr. Frankel, I give you the microphone.
All jobs are essential. Can you imagine the arrogance, the nerve of our government to tell us that 30 million people who have worked for years and years in a job are not essential? They're essential to themselves, to their families, to their children, and they're essential to this country. They picked and chose who is essential. The Congress has determined they're essential, but they're not there. The prophet Isaiah spoke the words of God, and he said, "Woe to those who make unjust laws." And you can read the rest of it in Isaiah 10. The word woe is very, very scary. Woe to those who make unjust laws. I've been a doctor for 50 years. I've been a board certified in family practice. I have a master's degree in public health. I looked up Dr. Fauci. I figured he had a master's in public health. He doesn't. I figured he has a degree in immunology. He doesn't. He's an internist. He has a lot of honorary degrees, but that's all. For 50 years, that man has been looking at screens, models, and data, and test tubes. For 50 years, I've been examining and treating people.
Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, there's a reason that California has a lower incidence of this disease than New York. It should be higher. We're closer to China. We have more flights to China. We have more Chinese people. We have more involvement with China. But our rates are low, very low. And why are they low? Because I can tell you as a clinician, I saw many people, maybe a couple of hundred in December and January who had a flu that was very difficult to get rid of. And I'm sure those people had coronavirus. We didn't know about it at that time. And we have the herd immunity. That's why our rates are low. They told us we have to look at the science. And we said, okay. President Trump said, okay. Their science was theory. Their science was theory. They had a model, which was the worst case scenario, and they had a theory. Let me tell you about models. When we do a model about the weather, we say there's a hurricane in the Caribbean. It might go up the coast to New York. It might turn left to Tampa. It might go into the ocean and not affect anyone. But let's board up our windows. Let's be careful. Let's hope for the best. They didn't give us any hope. They gave us the worst case scenario. And their data is wrong. They said to us they're giving us mortality rates. Now follow me here. Mortality rates are simply deaths over population. Deaths over 100,000 people. That's what a mortality rate is. I've read hundreds and hundreds of papers. That's what death rates are. They say these are deaths over positive tests. That is not mortality rate. They say positive cases. They're not even cases. If I ask you, did you ever have chickenpox? You say yes. And I ask you, do you have it now? And you say no. And if I tested you for the chickenpox virus, you'd be positive, but you don't have the disease. Rand Paul was positive for the virus. He went into quarantine as a senator, as you know, and also an ophthalmologist. He came out 2 weeks later. They said, "What were your symptoms?" He said, "I had none." Rand Paul had the virus, but he didn't have the disease. So the bottom number is wrong because it should be per 100,000 population, and they're saying it's cases, and it's not cases, it's positive tests. And the top number is wrong because anybody that has the virus, whether they're in an automobile accident or they have a coronary arrest, they're counting as a COVID virus death. That's never been done. That's unheard of. So the data they're putting into the worst case scenario model has to come out wrong. What is it? Input and output. You put the wrong thing in, you get the wrong thing out. That's going to happen every time. We've listened to them because they said this is what was going to happen. 2.2 million people are going to die. 250 people were going to die. 250,000, 100,000. Now we're down to 75,000. And of those 75,000, only 12,000 were COVID-19 without comorbidities. Only 12,000. In this county, we have one death, one per 300,000 people. One. I can't even tell you all the zeros. It wouldn't even make any sense to you. One death, and we haven't had a death in 4 months. In the last 4 months, we've had 4 deaths from influenza A and B in this county, and no one says anything about it. So now it's not theory. Now we have the data. They said, let's go by science. Okay, we agreed. They said, close your businesses. We agreed, we acquiesced. Wear masks, stay away from each other. Don't even shake each other's hand, no hugging you. And it's never gonna be the same, they said. It's always gonna be like this. And that was all based on theory. Now we have the data. The data in California says there are 6 deaths per 100,000. That is the true mortality rate of California. Colorado had 12 per 100,000, they opened up. Mississippi had 8, they opened up. The death rate is 6 per 100,000. The death rate for suicide in California is 8. Suicides are going up. The coronavirus is going down. We all want to do the right thing. We all want to listen to the powers that be. We all want to do what our leaders say. But our leaders now have trampled on the Constitution that they agreed to uphold on a Bible. So Governor Newsom has invalidated himself. If we wait for the government to open things up, we're going to have more deaths and disease, much more deaths and disease, from child abuse, from spousal abuse, from opiate addiction, from suicides. And those are things that will stay with us forever. A child that's beaten never forgets it, never. This COVID virus is self-limiting. It will always be self-limiting, a flu. Man is so arrogant that they think they can change the weather, whether it be cooling or warming, and they think they could change a virus by staying away from each other. That's inhumane. And you know, we want to love our neighbors. We want to take care of the vulnerable. But what about the people that have to take care of the vulnerable? Who's going to support the vulnerable if we don't work? The time has come for us to act. Now, there's 2 things I really want. Number 1, I want my fellow doctors to open up their practices. Right now, very important, because we have people with chronic diseases, congestive heart failure, COPD, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, that are not getting their routine care. And those people are going to suffer for it. So the doctors have to open their practices. When I took an oath, it's called a Hippocratic oath. Maybe it's the Hippocratic oath. Maybe it's the hypocritical oath. I knew the dangers. I knew that I would be exposed to diseases. That's part of the job. I go all over the world with a group called His Healing Hands, a medical Christian missionary group. I've been exposed to everything. I've been exposed to malaria. I've been exposed to dengue fever. I've been exposed to diseases you never heard of. Chikungunya in Indonesia. You never heard of that one. I've been exposed to all of them. It's what you do when you're a doctor. And the doctors need to open up their practices and stop being afraid of getting the disease they're supposed to protect their patients from. And the second thing, which is just as important and maybe more so, the churches in the United States, in 250 years of our existence, have never been closed. No one has ever dared to say the churches are closed. It's in the First Amendment. It's freedom of religion. It's freedom of speech. It's freedom of assembly. They cannot do this. And I don't even know the words. Encourage, cajole, maybe even beg the pastors to stand up and to open their churches today and for this Sunday. The church that I go to is closed. I'm going to another church because people need to pray. Yesterday they had all the pastors here with Dan Dow praying on the National Day of Prayer. It was great. It was wonderful. It's terrific. They blessed our country. They blessed Governor Newsom. They blessed his family. They blessed everybody. But we need to pray as well. And we need fellowship. And we need to go back to church. The science is in. They had in New York City, they discovered, as you heard, 67% of the people who died were sheltering. And it wasn't the essentials who were going to work, who were on the buses and the subways. It was us non-essentials who died. The shelter in place didn't do anything. So the conclusion should be, let's stop it. No, their conclusion was to double down and shelter more. It doesn't make sense. We are citizens of the United States. If we let this governor trample our Bill of Rights, take away our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, our freedom of assembly, we're finished. We're finished. So I agree with our past speaker. Open your businesses today. I've opened mine. There's a risk. I agree. So what? Stand up. Take the risk. Do what's right. Doctors, open your practices. Pastors, priests, rabbis, imam, open up your house of prayers. Thank you.
Another hand for Dr. Frankel. He is wonderful. What great words of wisdom right there we just shared. That was fabulous. All right, so I'm going to say a little phrase, and I want you to answer with freedom, and then I'm going to say something else, and you can say now, all right? I'll kind of coach you on that. What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Freedom!
When do we want it?
Now!
And there was a lot of power in that word now, wasn't there? There's a lot of power in the word freedom, too. These are things that our forefathers fought for. My mother is a daughter of the American Revolution. You know, and we think we have it rough right now. I'll tell you something, guys. I have ancestors who, there was a long winter, and they couldn't plant their crops that year. So you know how they stayed alive? They ate bark soup, okay? So I'm telling you about tough times. We think it's tough when the internet goes down. I know we've been sheltering at home, eating Cheerios and drinking milk and watching, well, whatever we watch. Hopefully it's... I watched Gray State the other day. That was pretty disturbing. Watch these crazy things like pandemic. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't reinforce it. I try not to watch it, CNN or MSC. I have to watch it, and then I watch Fox, because I want to know what both sides are up to, you know. Kind of get a little wisdom from both.